Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome you back to Messiah Files episode 2. And this is the continuation of our discussion on human nature. For that, before leaving myself the floor to the Shah Sahab, I will request to all of you please subscribe and like this. Thank you so much. Over to you, Shah Sahab.
Thank you, Sheikh Saab, so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to Messiah Files. In our first episode, we learned why extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence and how our low investigative tendencies make us vulnerable to scams, including the spiritual ones. Today, we will go deeper. Before we explore the claimants themselves, the Messiah claimants themselves, we need to understand the machine that makes belief possible. That is the human mind, actually. We are not going to get into the scientific and biological anatomical details of the brain, but we rather look into the functions that we use on a daily basis. So, in this episode, to break it down, we will look at the brain, the processes of the brain, and why some mechanisms that help us survive can also give complications to us. So, we will get into the psychological phenomenon behind the belief system that we are all talking about today in various forms of religion and so on. So prior to that, I will now share my screen and take myself offline from the camera and continue with my presentation. So
Thank you.
before we get any further into the presentation itself, it's very important to know why we are doing this. The Messiah Files is basically an independent educational project. We are trying to educate ourselves and as well as you. And how we are doing that is by exploring history. We are checking out the belief and the human behavior, and you will see how that works. We at no point of time are in favor of supporting any kind of hate, any kind of misunderstanding. We already have enough of that in our world. We don't need any more of it. In fact, we should be working to create more harmony, more relationships rather than hate. And we are not in any form or shape advocating any misunderstandings for people or groups. So that must be very clear. And in the comments I have received, I'm answering some of them now, that we do use a lot of visuals, and that is for people to understand our points better. And most of these, in fact, 99.9% of them are AI generated. So if they resemble a person or any scenario, it's purely coincidental. So without further ado, I'd like to get into the game right away. And before I start the presentation of today's episode, I like to take you in the background, in the shelves, to see what basically makes up the human nature. So, as AK Sheikh Saab rightfully said, we need your support. It's not a monetized channel, and we are only seeking your support in reaching out to more and more audience. So, please like, share, and subscribe. So, let's imagine a scenario of a street and an individual standing on the street, and for the passerby, he's asking a simple question: can I get $10? Now, the person is very courteous. We are taking away all the factors that may be intimidating. So the person is simple, normal looking individual asking for $10. Now, we will rephrase the question on behalf of this gentleman and say, he's asking, I'm sick, I'm short of medicine, can I get $10? So there are two different things. The two different questions are, can I get $10? And I need $10 for my medicine. According to statistics, 5% chance of getting $10 just by asking for $10 or even less. Whereas I'm sick, I need medicine, and can I get $10 because I'm short of it? The chances are a little bit higher, up to 25%, let's say. Between the two of them, the $10 is common. But what's the difference? This one contains a story. Now, this has to be very important because throughout Messiah Files, when we are discussing them, we are discussing human nature. This is going to be very important and relevant. The point of the story. Storytelling. What is storytelling? I'm sure everyone remembers a story from their childhood. I remember so many of my own childhood. It's how we get our data. If we were told basic information, we will forget it. When it's coming to us in the form of a story, we remember it. And this is how language was taught to us. This is how myths were taught to us. Excuse me. This is how all of the knowledge that we have received in the past was passed on through stories. So human beings have gotten used to the idea of storytelling and listening to stories. And stories give us a bit of context. It puts emotion to the data. Without stories, the data is just pure newspaper. You don't relate to it. The story makes it connected to us. And the words that are used in a story, they increase our presence of mind into the subject. If you imagine a child listening to a story of a tiger, you can see them getting scared. That happens because they are in the story. They're actually literally in a jungle. And that's what stories do to us. Now, continuing with this, I would like to excuse me for that. Um, we have two different segments of our brain. There are actually three. The reptilian one, I'm not discussing that at this stage, only emotional brain and the rational brain. The emotional brain is known as the limbic system, whereas the rational brain, if you're interested, is known as neocortex. Now, the emotional brain is faster to respond, and that's genetically how we are. Evolutionary processes have made our emotional brain active first, and then the rational brain gets into action. Now, the emotional brain responds with fear, anger, pleasure, happiness, sadness, confidence. All of that is from the emotional side. The rational side is reasoning. It gives you logic. It tells you this doesn't look right. You analyze, you make decisions with thought. So both of these brain, the functions of these brain allow us to navigate in our world of today. So as I was telling you, the brain that activates first whenever a situation comes up is the emotional brain. And then the next part that activates is the rational brain. The rational brain requires a lot more energy. It's scientifically proven that it requires the body to have more energy in order to process. And which is why the body, to conserve energy, it doesn't want to get into the rational mind all the time. It's very tiring. So imagine if somebody comes with a car and says, I'm a taxi driver, you call for a taxi, I'm here. If you investigated the taxi, you check the papers of the individual, you check the tire pressures yourself, everything. It's logical you may want to do that because it's part of your safety, but it will tire you up physically and mentally. And that's because your rational brain cannot process all this much data all the time. Now, why is this important? Is because the emotional brain works with stories, as I talked about earlier. It needs more meaning, deeper meaning. It needs belonging, part of a group. It needs empathy. It needs a lot of emotional support because it's an emotional brain. Whereas the rational brain requires facts, requires evidence, structure, rules, logics. So let's imagine a person at a railway station missing the train. And he goes and says, when is the next train? And the answer is, you will board a train in the future. That answer is not very pleasing. Everybody misses a train once in a while. It's not very helpful because that person's logical brain is active now. He wants specifically the time of the next train. So if you tell him the next train is in 15 minutes and it's coming to platform 8, that's the answer you're looking for because your rational brain is active at this moment. So there are two different functions of these rational brain and emotional brain. So let's go further. We need both of them. We can't live with just one. So imagine having only the emotional side. It's not practical. You will be emotional all the time. You'll not make any planned decisions. And if you go too much into the rational side, you will not have any emotions. And so you need a combination of the two in different situations so that you have a balanced life. Now, if a rational brain is active, the person is listening to reason, listening to logic. Imagine a customs officer. The person is trying to identify specific things. Police officer stopping a car on the road. They are checking for your license, your car certificates, and insurances. So those sort of things. They are not interested in your backstory. Maybe they would like to hear it, but that's not important for them because the rational brain is active. Whereas if the person is emotional, they will participate. They will get involved more. They will ask more questions. An uncle, for instance, or a neighbor, they're more concerned about the well-being, so they would like to listen to the backstory. They are party to your business. So these are the people who will participate with you a little bit more. Now, as we continue, I'm going to take some examples here to illustrate the two functions. Food is something we enjoy. When we are sad, we eat food. When we are happy, we eat food. We celebrate using food. We meet people using food occasions. We are into social eating all the time. It's part of our emotional life now. Whereas the same food, if you take it in the form of a diet plan or any sort of lack of better word, somebody trying to cut down calories, the same food becomes difficult to eat because now your rational mind is working. You want to eat less. You want to make sure that you have eaten just the right quantity, the right type. So even though it's food, it will not taste as good as the social eating, for instance. And this illustrates to you how the two brains work on the same stimuli. I'm going to take this a little bit further. If any individual has to sit down and do zikr and read any of the du'as, I mean, let's say La ilaha illa anta subhanaka, and you are doing this du'a 1,000 times, 100,000 times, or 500,000 times, or a million, at a certain point in time, you'll get tired. Even though it's a dua, you're reaching out to Allah Rabbul Izzat, you're asking for guidance, you're asking for mercy, you're asking for help, it makes you tired. And the same thing in the form of a khawali, you will enjoy for hours and hours. And why do we enjoy a khawali and not enjoy zikr as much? We will discuss this later on when we come to how followers have adapted into cultural nuances. We will talk about that then. So I'm not going to cover this here, but just a point to make is because in the Khawali side, we have an emotional connection. And in the Zikr side, we are using our logical brain. So it consumes more energy, makes us more tired. In fact, prayer should make us more rational and emotional at the same time. But what we do with prayers is we actually make it a logical exercise as opposed to an emotional exercise. And to illustrate that point, allow me now to give you three different examples of that. When we look at the emotional brain, and if you are doing your ibadah using only emotional brain, you will end up looking like this. You will have no structure, no control, you no logic. You may dance, you may rotate, you may go in circles, you may roll on the floor, you may do whatever, all that, because that's what you want to do emotionally. You feel like doing that. Whereas if you are too rational, you will only be praying mechanically with no heart. So you may even not remember what you prayed in your rakat. And this is what people are asking for, khushu'. And when you look at the khushu', it's not generated from your body, it's generated from your mind. So you need to understand what you're reading, why you're reading it, and who are you reaching out to when you're doing your salat. And if you combine the two of them, you will end up with the salat with khushu' and discipline. Have you wondered why Allah has given us all this discipline in our worship? We have to make wudu, we have to stand in a certain way, we have to stand facing a qibla, we have certain times to pray, and the prayer has to be in a specific manner. If it's a 4 rakat, it has to be in a certain way. And when we do tashahhud, we do in a certain way. The way we place our hands, the way we place our feet, all of that is a discipline that Allah wants us to have. Yet Allah wants us to have the freedom of emotional connection. Because when you are performing your salat with physical control, it balances your emotional. When you don't have that, you will end up into the state of trance, hallucinations, and all the rest of it that comes with just following it through your limbic system. Now, we will cover, as I said, later on into this particular aspect a bit more. So I'll leave it for now and proceed further. So here are two different dishes on offer. We have a biryani, which all of us love in the subcontinent. In fact, Arabs as well like it. I'm sure it's quite popular now in the West. Whereas we have kimchi, which I actually enjoy a lot. It's a Korean dish. And so if you present this to Orientalist cuisine, for instance, an Asian person, they would prefer the kimchi over the biryani. Whereas a subcontinent person may want to have the biryani. What is happening here? The food is the same, it's tasty, It's nutritious, it's amazing, everybody loves it. But because the limbic system, which is your emotional system, is trained, the limbic system forms emotional bonds. And it forms these bonds through childhood, for instance. It forms it through repeated activities, through cultural environments, through rituals, and many other things. I've listed down a few over here. So, for instance, when you enjoy biryani, it's because you've eaten biryani as a child. Whereas the Chinese person has not eaten biryani as a child, they have eaten their own food, and so as a result, they will not feel hungry when they see biryani. So, the limbic system, which is the emotional side, is now associated to a specific type of food. And this is what I want to come to later on as to why we behave in a certain way. It's not divine, it's not because we are chosen by God to love biryani, it's because we have culturally been trained to do these activities. Now, we continue further. I'm going to refer to this very quickly, but these are super important points. We will also talk about them later on. So we are still talking about the learned limbic activation, which is the limbic system becoming activated through a learned behavior. The emotional side, the limbic system is the emotional side. So the emotional part of faith is trained. Let's imagine a kid is learning Quran in a specific way, right? We'll take three examples of that. So the emotional part of faith is trained, which means you can train your brain emotionally how to see the faith. If the child is raised understanding the Quran, the child will always find meaning in the Quran. This happened to us as we were growing up. There are many stories, and in our home, we had a culture of Quran, alhamdulillah, and we used to share ayat randomly. I can give you an example. My uncle had passed by, and my dad asked him, "You haven't come down to us for a while. What has happened?" He said, "I was not well." And so basically it was said that Ashkuruni yazid lakum. So thank me, I'll give you more. He said, thank Allah for your sickness, Allah will give you more. And they smiled. You know, you can use Quran in your everyday life. And that's because that's how you understand Quran. But if you love the recitation of the Quran, Abdul Basit and all of these giants of Khirat, these people, if you Sheikh Abdul Mohsen Al Qasim, all of these people, As-Sudais, all of these people, if you listen to them and you don't understand Quran, you will love the sounds of Quran, but you don't understand it. Your limbic system is active now, but it's only active for the sound, but it doesn't understand the meaning. Whereas if you just read the Quran without any understanding, without any emotional conditioning by sounds or anything, you will relate to Quran just purely as a book, a dictionary, which you think you need it when you need it. Now, based on these three circumstances, you can train your emotional connection to Quran. Now, in our society, I don't need to tell you this, and you can look around. How do we treat the Quran? So, how do we treat Pir Fakirs and how do we treat the Quran? We go to them for meaning, but we don't go to the Quran for meaning. And as a result of that, our emotional connection with Pir Fakir is stronger than our emotional connection with Quran and the Salat. Allah said in the Quran that if you are in trouble, if you feel you are in any kind of distress, you have to ask the protection of Allah. You have to ask for Allah's help through sabr and your salah. And Allah said, وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. It's going to be heavy on them as a burden. It's very heavy on them. They cannot pray. They cannot. If you tell them to pray salat, it's like putting a mountain on their shoulders. The salah time just goes in front of their eyes. They don't get to pray because they don't connect with the salah emotionally. They don't think my problem will be solved if I went and I prayed and I asked Allah for help. It will be solved immediately. And this is exactly what I'm trying to relate to here, that the limbic activation happens through learned behavior. So we will go back to this. The emotional brain, the scammers want to keep this part activated because the scammers will tell you stories, will try to give you all kinds of information, will give you hidden meanings, will give you metaphors, will give you all of that because they cannot give you facts. They have no facts to give you. So if they let your rational brain ask questions, that means they have no answers. So they will keep you connected to the emotional side as long as possible, possibly all the time. But what we are doing in Messiah Files is we are appealing and requesting you to please use your rational brain for our research. We want you to be rational. We want you to ask the tough questions. We want you to look at our research and say, how is this possible? We want you to remind us and yourselves that this is how it works. So, this is a prelude to our episode. I hope this is clear. We will be touching base on this on and off, as well as we're going to be talking about the subjects I mentioned to you later on in great detail. So, let's begin. Episode 2, the title, They Know You Don't. And that's the whole point. They are aware, but they don't want you to know it. What am I talking about? So let's quickly get into it. So let's meet some people. Let's meet some personalities. Let's meet a doctor who doesn't have a medical degree. Let's meet a police officer who is not in the police. Let's meet a pilot who has never flown a plane, never seen inside of a plane. Let's meet a banker who doesn't work for any bank. Let's meet an engineer who doesn't have any degree. How is that possible? How are all these people doctors and engineers and not have done any of those things? It's because people have been faking to be others as long as we can remember. People are lying about who they are and they're not. And just as long as they've been lying, people have been believing them. Just as long. So whenever people have said, I'm a doctor, people have believed them. Not all, but they get believers. So it's like throwing a net in the sea. They might not catch everything, but they'll catch certainly some fish. Now, I'm not saying this. I'm just giving you 3 examples over here. This is from BBC. A pilot was caught flying for a national airline after having flown for 20 years without a license. In fact, he had a fake license with him. He wasn't even a pilot, actually. You know, doctors are caught every day performing surgeries. They have no medical degrees. People are posing as anything, bankers, engineers, doctors, however you want to call it. These are some examples of people who are doing this. So it's not something I'm making up. It's really happening around us. This is not new and it's not primitive. It's very, very old. In fact, it's called the wolf in sheep's clothing. It goes back to Aesop's fables. If you know what that is, it's very interesting to read that. So what basically it says is that your danger of a predator, if you see the predator from a distance, you know the predator. But some predators disguise themselves as a sheep and they get close to you. And they wear the attire of a sheep and they look like a sheep, but they're actually not sheep. And in fact, in the Bible as well, it's mentioned in Matthew 7:15. It says, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So I could go on quoting this. This is a very popular topic. People know about this, so I'm not going to go much into this. Just to explain to you the phenomenon of why people fake to be others and how it works. It's called impersonation, by the way, and it's present in almost every single scam. 99.9% of the time, you will find impersonation of some sort in a scam. And what do they scam with? How the impersonation works. Give you 3 examples, and this is broadly the categories they work with. They can be the actual person. They can say, I am so and so, I'm John Doe, I am whoever. Just a name of a person, a real person. They can claim to be a person in a position. I'm a police officer, I'm a customs officer, I'm a doctor, I'm a pilot. So they're claiming to be a position. And they can also claim an authority, such as I am from customs, I'm from the knowledge department, I'm from health. So any of those things. And they can have combination of it as well. So the impersonation happens from all of these things, the factors. So keep that in mind, please. Why do they do that? It's because scammers need symbols of intelligence, compassion, authority. They need it because they don't have anything of their own. So they want to pretend to be somebody else. Why? Because they want to be convincing, so you are believing them. Who will believe them if a person walks on the street and says, I want to find your car because you parked it wrong, you'll say, who are you? And if he pretends to be a policeman, he can walk away with something. So that's the need for these people to constantly find a personality they want to emulate, they want to present themselves as. Now, I mentioned to you about this. This is very important to know that because their claims are true, no, nobody believes them because of their claims. Because they know how to project confidence and credibility. That's what they're trying to do. Please remember these words. They're going to be very important as we will be discussing. Now, impersonation is an acting. So I'm going to take an example here of a fictitious actor. This is how the actor probably looks like. And he's a really good actor, apparently. They put a makeup on him, dress him up well, give him all the get-up and everything else, and then he goes on stage as a completely different person with a new name, new title. His behavior is different. He walks differently. He's telling a story. He's using language. His symbolism is different. And he's using all of that, the physical appearance, the social, and everything else, to convince you he's a different person. But behind the mask, he is actually a very different person. But he has come fully prepared in front of us to project this particular personality. Please remember the fact we talked about storytelling and narrative is going to be very important later on. And we covered that just a little bit earlier as to why that is important. Scammers use storytelling extensively, extensively. Without storytelling, they're not activating our emotional brain. So they need stories. So let's look at that. So can somebody tell stories into professions? Can I quickly say I'm a licensed physician and get away with it? No, it's not easy. It's happening, but it's not easy. Because professions like medicine, aviation, engineering, they all have systems. They have their degree systems, they have certifications, licenses. In 5 seconds, you will know if the person has done it or not. The clever ones, it will take a little time, but they will eventually be caught because there are systems in place. But what about things that do not have such regulation, like religion? So in religion, it's not regulated as a university degree is regulated. When somebody says, I have divine experience, I have seen the prophet in my dream, or God spoke to me, or anything like that, how are you going to verify that? Is there any test, polygraph? Can you take his blood test? Can you put him through any kind of a physical examination? You cannot. So you have to believe him or not believe him. And it's like tossing a coin, 50-50 all the time. So there is no test to confirm if they're chosen by God. We don't even know if they have a divine experience. We don't even know if they have a knowledge. How are you going to check every single thing a person knows? How are you going to check if I said I am from Syed, I'm a Syed? I can prove it to you through our ancestral tree. But what if my ancestral tree isn't true? What if I've just photoshopped it? So how will you verify that what I'm claiming in religion is in fact true or not? Now, this is a problem, right? We go further to see the consequences. So let's say a person has run a fake clinic, which I was talking about earlier. This is an AI image, it's not real. So a person will get arrested if they performed anything like that and they're exposed. But look at the other side of it. If a religious man says, God spoke to me and I am literally talking to God all the time, and so on, millions will follow him because he doesn't need to prove no one. He doesn't even need to show any kind of proof, simple proof. They will say, show me a miracle or any of that, but that's beside the point. There are hundreds of ways of dodging that question. So basically what's happening, because faith systems do not have a professional oversight, there's no regulatory body, no testing mechanism, there is no way of validating that claim. So now you are at the mercy of your own logic and your own questioning to determine whether this person is genuine or not. Okay, so we go further. Let's look at something. Let's put ourselves to the test. Yeah, a person looks decent, comes from a good family, well presented, doesn't look like he's going to beg you for money or anything like that. Looks decent man, eloquent. He says, I'm a Nabi. And you're given three options. I believe you. Show me some proof. I'm serious. If you can show me proof, I'll follow you. And you'll say, I'm sorry, you're not normal. I really can't believe this. So tick this box and see which one works for you. We did this. I added, for the sake of fun, Peer Fakir in there because I'm quite interested in that. So we did an agent simulation, which is using an AI specific tool for psychoanalysis. I really don't want to get into that details, but if you're interested, you can put it in the comment and I'll be more than happy to share it with you. So we took three examples of that, the same questions, and Peer Fakir, and 2025, can you believe in subcontinent, it predicts 54% people are going to say, yes, I believe in this Peer Fakir. 36% will say, show me some proof, some kind of proof. 10% will say, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? You're not normal. Whereas if you look at that same exact thing in 1800s, it's going to be 95% says, I believe you. Why is this? We'll talk about it. 4% will say, show me proof, because they're scared. They don't want to upset the religious man. And the religious people had a way of dominating people not to ask questions. You know, they have these call me huzur or stand with their, don't make eye contact. So they discourage your critical thinking all times. We'll talk about that as well. And you're not normal. 1% will dare to say that. and they will be, the super high educated people with confidence from good families, strong financially. Only those people will stand up. The rest of them will just subdue themselves. Whereas if you look at I'm a Nabi situation, and going back to 2025, you will find 2025, 5% will say, I believe you. Five at best. Show me proof 20%. There are some like that for sure. 75% will say, man, you're not normal. This is some kind of prank. It's going to be on social media. I'm not believing you. But if you look at that in 1800s, it's crazy. If you look at the numbers, as a Nabi, 50% will fight back. You look at the Pir Fakir, only 1% will fight back because Pir Fakir, you absolutely believe they absolutely some kind of divine powers within that. He's flying in the air, walking on water, all that kind of stuff. Whereas a Nabi, it requires a little bit more, evidence. And we talked about that earlier. Now, 20% will instantly believe. The 20% who they are, we'll talk about the follower matrix later on, the demographics of it, you'll understand that. Show me proof I'm serious, 30% will say, okay, show me, I'm ready, I'm listening to you, tell me something. Whereas you're not normal, again, these are going to be educated people, people who know the religion, people who have financial stability, they come from good families, and they are not in a position of being dominated. Only those people stand up. So the ratio is 50-50. Yeah? In 1800s, 50% of people will follow, and 50% of people will resist. Now, to put this to test, I'm giving this example of Zaytoon FM, a really good channel. I learned a lot from it. I still follow them. Please, while you're liking and subscribing us, also do that for Zaytoon. They're doing a really good job. Um, a person came on and they interviewed him. I'm a prophet, and they said the first comment was, "This man needs serious medical help immediately." And this isn't even. I think if you go back and check the numbers now, probably higher. I mean, a lot of people supported this idea that this man need to be checked. Can you imagine anybody believing while he's sitting in Germany saying, I'm a Nabi, follow me? Would you follow him? You won't, because your rational sense has developed over time. In 1800s, we're going to talk about this, your limbic system was more active because you were suffering from all kinds of things, so you're emotional all the time. It is easier for stories to be put in front of you and you'll believe them because that's what your mind's looking for. Today, we are not into that zone. We can chat GPT, Google our way. We can find many alternatives to information. So we will not be fooled easily. Plus, we don't have the time for it. Um, Now I'm going to switch to something very important, and this is going to be the last segment of our presentation of the day. And please remember, this is not only for Messiah files, this is generally very important in life. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. I cannot emphasize the importance of knowing what this is because we may encounter people with that around us because 1 to 6% people meet full NPD diagnostic criteria worldwide, according to the specialists. Now, they are saying 10 to 15%, they have tendencies, but they've not been diagnosed. I'm saying it's about 50 to 60%, some form or shape of narcissism. If you do not have someone in your family, in your immediate environment who's a narcissist, thank Allah every day because you are completely unaware of the trauma you will go through if a narcissist enters your life. It's not easy. It's a really hard thing to work with. Why and how, we will talk about this now, but these people are everywhere. And when they come out, they come out when they need attention and they're in a control position. You will see their really eyes shine when they come into this position. We see them in politics, entertainment, if they are a parent, in-law, community figure, a teacher, a religious leader, any one of them can be. There is no criteria. Just because he is a religious man, no, sorry. Narcissism doesn't discriminate. It's a ruthless condition. People have zero sense of empathy, sympathy, and it's really difficult to deal with people like that. I'm not going to get into the details of that here, but I strongly urge for everyone to do research on what this is and try to prevent your life becoming a hell. So going forward, I'm going to take some lessons from Quran. Obviously, Quran has multiple lessons. I'm only covering a general outline of what I'm trying to see in here without getting into great details, but Quran obviously has multiple meanings, multiple implementations of its context. So this is not an isolated one interpretation. So there can be several. I'm going to go into the story of Iblis, and there's no better example to start off than with Iblis's example when you want to discriminate between and distinguish between rather between people with narcissism and not, uh, any sort of a spectrum of narcissism within them. So Allah is asking Iblis here, "Ma mana'aka, what stopped you to bow, to do sujood when I told you, when I commanded you, amartuka." Allah is saying, I commanded you to do sujood. And look at the audacity of Iblis. He says, "Ana khairu minhu." I am better than him. Khair, I am better than him. You have created me with fire, and you created him with teen, with clay. Now, when you look at this, this is classic grandiosity. Classic grandiosity. He's defining his worth and his superiority by his own standards. Who, when did Allah say that fire is better than clay? Where is it mentioned? He created his own illusions of grandiosity, his own superiority. And he says, I am better than him. I'm not going to bow down to him, even if you commanded me. You know, command is coming from Allah. Adam alayhi salam hasn't commanded him. Allah has commanded him. Yet he is choosing in here to let his ego stand in the way of implementing Allah's command. Let's go further and look at the other ayats. And now look at the second stage of his rebellion. He is saying, look at the entitlement. He's saying, yes, I have defied your orders. I am not going to do this, but I need time to prove my point. Okay, you made a mistake. You are not in how shall I put it? I mean, I'm struggling for words here. You can imagine he's refusing the command of Allah. And look at Allah Rabbul Izzat asking him, what stopped you? He wasn't even crucified the right same minute. Allah is asking, what stopped you? And he says, I'm better than him. Because of my own standards. I have created that in my mind, that because I'm fire, I'm better. Okay, great. Then what? He says, no, you have to give me time until they are resurrected. So until they are resurrected, I need my time. Okay, granted. Now look at the third stage of these ayat, the revelation of how ego and grandiosity all come together. Projection and manipulation. Now look at the manipulation at play here, right? Now he is saying that you made me fall. He's blaming Allah now. First of all, Allah hasn't done any sort of a thing in here in a normal person's eyes that is worthy of any kind of blame, auzubillah, right? Allah said, this is my command. What are we supposed to do? Follow the command. He didn't follow the command. Then he says, I need more time. Until Yawm al-Qiyamah, I need time. Because I am going to now, since you have put me in error, you have done this deliberately on me. This is gaslighting and projection, whatever you call it. And then he's saying, I'm going to take revenge. Okay, revenge from who? Adam alayhi salam? Even Adam alayhi salam doesn't deserve to be taken revenge from, because he didn't say, bow down to me. Allah said it. But he is not going to take revenge only with Adam alayhi salam. He's going to take revenge with Bani Adam, the entire progeny of Adam alayhi salam till Yawm al-Qiyamah. For one sujood that he was asked to do, and he said, I am higher than him and better than him because I'm made of fire. There's no such standard. But I am going to take time till Yawm al-Qiyamah. So every single person, I am going to now go behind them and I'm going to try to get them astray. If you see here, don't you see these parallels in our society today? When people, they get upset, they want to destroy the entire families, they want to destroy your careers, destroy your life and everything else. Where do you think this is coming from? These are all traits of grandiosity, which is sunnah of Iblis, actually, if you look at it. So he is refusing to submit. And he has a wound now. It's called a narcissistic wound, by the way. You can Google it. So he has inability to Adam alayhi salam's honor, and he has an injury now in his heart. He feels humiliated. He's feeling humiliated. He's saying, okay, I have lost my status, and I am going to be in my rage and deny all what has Allah done for me, and I'm going to reject, and I am going to challenge the authority of Allah. And I'm asking for time. You look at this one. I'm going to quickly run through the other examples. So the moral of the story is it's not of disobedience only. It's about the spiritual danger of narcissism. When one's ego becomes the center of worship, it becomes the real big problem. I think I'm running out of time. I'm going to take 10 minutes more because I have a few important slides that are in connection. So bear with me. We'll try to adhere to time. When we talk about worship, we're talking about Pharaoh, another example from the Quran. It's not actually the picture, just a depiction here. So again, I'm going back to Quran, and he is telling his people, Pharaoh, that Ana Rabbukum, I am your Lord. And which kind of Lord? Allah Allah, the greatest, the highest. He is putting himself above every single thing. He's telling his people, I'm above every single thing. And this is own self promotion to the highest level you can imagine. And he says, delusion. Now he's in a full delusion. He says, have you not seen these rivers flowing? This kingdom of Egypt, this is all mine. And I am your Lord. And this is again part of grandiosity. I'm covering other parts from Iblis to tie the two stories together. Now, Pharaoh represents the psychological model of unchecked grandiosity, which means grandiosity now it's out of control. It's a Ferrari that has lost its brakes and full speed. It's you're gonna die. It's basically someone who's on full speed, and his image is basically God. I am God. I'm not even in Iblis's case. He was not claiming God status, by the way. His grandiosity was there, refusing Allah's command. But here he wants to become God, completely God, and he has zero capability of any kind of emotions. Any kind of emotions. He's thrown kids into the river. That's how he was. So the reflection, empathy, nothing in him, absolutely nothing. So if you look at the two stories combined, they are classic examples of the narcissist. They are intelligent, but they're arrogant. They're spiritually aware. Iblis knew Allah. He was seeing the Jannah. He was seeing the fire. He knew everything. But he couldn't take it. His ego, his grandiosity wouldn't allow him. So they are aware of the religion, but they will choose a path which is completely against it. Yeah. And they're self-worshipping. They want to be worshipped. They want the center of all the universe's attention on them. And they're unable to empathize. They want to dominate. They just want to be the people in the room who deserve all the attention. So we're going to go a little bit further. Both stories in the Quran are pointing towards grandiosity, a pride, which is narcissistic pride. Pride's okay. And entitlement. Entitlement is a disease. And all of them are actually. We'll talk about them later on when we come to messiahs. Now, these are latent personalities. Latency means something that is hidden. Last two slides, please bear with me. So just like an iceberg, which you see on the top, and there's much bigger down below the surface that you don't see, a person's personality can be such. You can see a personality on the top, and there's a hidden personality that you don't see. And this gets triggered when a situation presents itself. So let's say somebody finds a wallet on the floor. What they're going to do? Keep it or give it to security? And this is a moral balance that they need to find. If the person has in them hidden personality of being a thief, they'll steal it. If they are honest, they will take it and give it to the security because the rightful owner will come looking for it. And which brings me to the last slide of today's presentation. From the ayat of the Quran, I'd like to close it with this. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. What a beautiful ayat. And incidentally, this is the only ayat in the Quran, the only time Allah uses the word ilham or this context of word in the Quran, only one time, is فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. You know, when we say people get ilham, the good people get ilham, there's no such thing. Allah has given ilham to every nafs, has been given the knowledge of the right and the wrong and inspired it in us. And how you control your fujur and you reveal your taqwa, it depends on how close you are to God and what kind of personality you have, how you've groomed your brain. If your limbic system is associated more towards the emotional side and you have groomed yourself and you're a dominating type and you get dopamine release because of it, you will find in every situation to dominate people, to do wrong through it. So, inshallah, in the next episode of Messiah Files, which is part 3, we will go directly into the Messiah claimants. We will talk about individuals now. We have done enough background. If you've not watched our first episode, please do so. this episode. If you have any questions, drop them down. We are more than happy to answer you. Jazakumullah khair and look forward to seeing you soon, inshallah. Sorry for going a little over time today, Akram Bhai and Sheikh Sam.